miss a week and this is what happens.
Well, the midnight headlight, blinding on a rainy night, speed train up ahead, slowing down and making no time. I gotta keep it rolling. Those in the windshield wipers snapping out the tempo, playing perfect rhythm with the song on the radio. I gotta keep it rolling.
Welcome everybody to the GiG App Worker Rodeo Roundtable. I'm Steve, and my voice is a little under today, so bear with me. Let's welcome on the far side my co-host Kim's Side Money Plans. Bear with my voice. Right beneath me, we got Cheyenne, Gig Work Mama, and then of course we have Tom Kelly. Our guest tonight, for those not familiar, Torsten and I have done podcasts before. We have passion projects that we share on driver safety, and they've all been really good podcasts too. So, but he's never been on the round table. So last, but clearly not least, let's welcome Torsten, Rideshare Professor. Most of you know him.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love being on your show. You keep it real. You got good questions and good topics. So thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say that you and I have done actually 4 things. We did like 3 years ago, we did a piece on safety, and then we did a podcast audio, and then we were supposed to do a piece with David from Para. He couldn't make it. You and I did it, and then we did a piece with David like a month after. But that out of all of them, that third piece that you and I did alone when David didn't make it. No offense, David, we love you, but that I feel like that was a really good piece.
Yeah.
You know, we got through quite a lot. So thank you everybody in chat for joining. We're gonna jump right in tonight. And so obviously we're gonna talk some rideshare. And if you're just coming in and if you're on this stream, please do vote on the pinned what I put up there. I can't even remember what it reads now, but you know, something about would you let your, and this isn't from a rider standpoint, this is from a parent standpoint, even if you aren't one, would you let your 13 to 17-year-old child ride in an Uber team?
No.
Not at all.
Kim just answered for everybody.
No.
So,
No.
But Torsten, since we have you here tonight, and I was looking through your most recent content, trying to get a feel for what the best, because again, I know your stuff so well that I was like, get a feel for like what the best way to approach some of tonight is. And first thing I had was, in your mind right now, which is the lesser of the two evils, Uber or Lyft?
Well, I think, you know, Lyft is scoring some points. They're trying hard. If you look at today's Q3, I mean, they shot up. Wow, they shot up right over the $18 mark. They went up 20-something%. So they must be doing something right for Wall Street or for the investor world. And what they're doing is they obviously forming those synergies. They have the one synergy going with DoorDash right now. David Risher always says it. He learned it from Jeff Bezos. He's all about the customer, all about the customer. That seems to be working. Their membership plan seems to be working. And then on the other side, Uber had a nice little uptick after the robotaxi launch, which I think didn't go too well. It was more like a little Hollywood, showpiece. And they had a little surge there stock-wise, but they've come down quite a bit. And, Wall Street is not favoring them. Well, they're favoring them, but not as much as Lyft right now. So I would argue, if I just had to use my business gut feel, Lyft is doing something right. Sadly, both are not paying the drivers.
I was going to get to that too. I was going to say that's why I said, and I don't. Maybe that wasn't the right way to word it. It's just what came to my head was lesser of two evils. But that really kind of gets back to that just because he said that doesn't mean like Lyft is where you should go be working tomorrow. Like.
By the way, that the ridership has gone down. The frequency of the bookings has gone down, and then I think Uber, needs to take full responsibility there, because if you gouging the rider such crazy high fees, at some point they start looking at a lot of the alternatives or cutting back, right? Or cutting back on their travel. So I think that Lyft is getting a lot of that. And I mean, that was a huge announcement in Q3 for Uber, that their bookings were dropping a little bit. So it's every day is a new day with Uber and Lyft, as you guys all know. It's always a new surprise. And we just have to be little chameleons and adapt to the craziness, I think.
Well,
okay, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, sorry, but just because you guys know I look at this stuff a lot. I think really Lyft's increase in stock price, so currently 22.85% over the last 24 hours. I think it's much more about expectations being exceeded. I think Lyft's story basically was, it's not as bad as you guys thought it was going to be.
Okay.
That's the story, and they can do it, and yes, I think that they have, and Steve and I were talking about this years ago, that they seem to pass on the possibility of having partnerships with other companies many, many times, and now they're jumping in, and Wall Street's applauding that. But we have to remember that Lyft is still way below where the S&P 500 index has been over the course of the last couple of years, and Uber continues to be way above.
Yeah.
And, and you can't compare apples and oranges. You don't look at their stock price and go, oh, okay, well, so Lyft is this much per unit, and Uber is that much per unit. So that means that doesn't mean anything. It's all about percentages and all that kind of good stuff. Uber still outpaced Lyft by 8 times. They're now 8 times larger in the last quarter than Lyft. And, so yes, it's good that Lyft didn't suck as bad as everybody thought they were going to. But at the same time, how much of what we're seeing today is because of Tuesday?
Wait, outpaced them 8 times in the United States.
Yeah.
Okay. Because what I was going to say to Torsten on that too, I was going to add in there too that, do you think any of the Lyft earnings too were based on this? Because this to me and probably to you is just a complete joke. And it's the first time they've done it. I mean, like as Tom just mentioned, even during the pandemic, they didn't step into food delivery. Would have been the easiest thing for them to do. They didn't do it. And now they're starting to try and pretend like they're teaming up with DoorDash. I don't know what that'll do, but I'm more concerned about this news about them being in the robo-taxi space now, because they've never tried this before.
Thank you for saying that. I was just going to say that because today, if you look at I think, what is that blog, Technorati or so, they announced that they're forming all these relationships with these software companies that enable the plug and play. So Uber's been pushing AV like crazy. They've done the deal in China. They're working with Waymo. And I think what David Risher is now starting to do is like, okay, well, we don't want to be left behind here. This looks like the future. All of these AVs are going to be plugging in. And they're pretty much bridging this period, right? Well, let's use the driver as long as possible until we get to the promised land. And the promised land is full autonomous vehicles. So both are stepping into that arena. And again, I think Wall Street is embracing the fact that David Risher is using that language of AVs now and forming these alliances. A little late, but it's happening. And they seem to love it. I mean, Wall Street seems to love it.
Well, but again, and I don't want to lose this point. How much of what we're seeing that Wall Street loves today is because they loved what happened on Tuesday with the election? It's very hard to measure, to separate those two things right now. So if you're big time buying, as a lot of people are today, though most of the analysts for Lyft are sitting on the sidelines. They're a hold. Where Uber, remember, was 3-to-1 buy versus anything else. Those who really are in this marketplace and really study it kind of went, Okay, nice to see you show up. Still not going to buy the stock. I'm not going to sell what I've got, but I'm not going to go buy more either.
I think there's a lot of room for growth with Lyft, and they're realizing that now. I mean, they're definitely undervalued. They're gonna. I can see them climbing quite a bit in the next few months.
I know a lot of people on here don't like David Risher. I think he's absolutely the right guy to be at Lyft right now. I think he sells that company much better than anybody else who's ever been at the top of that company. Okay, he knows what he's doing, and
But that's not saying much because their founders were pretty bad.
Well, I understand, but Risher, he has a lot of respect on the street, a lot of respect, and so people, if he comes out and continues to do the as you said earlier, really pressing on the customer first stuff, which he's been pressing and keeps pressing that. Again, I know he's not everybody's favorite person, but as far as what does Lyft need right now, they need David Risher. He's in the right place at the right time for that company.
Okay, for the financial world, perhaps, and for
the financial world, not for me. Okay,
not for the people that I sadly represent in the channel. They don't like hearing that, but I'll go along with what you said.
Yeah, I'm saying, as far as Wall Street is concerned, he's the right guy. As far as Tom Kelly is concerned,
but then at the same time, here's the FTC and via the DOL fining Lyft $2.1 million. They didn't even argue it; they just paid it.
That's $2.1 million. That's not even a slap on the knuckle.
But it's just like a drop in a bucket.
But it's the beginning of something with the FTC stuff, you guys. I'm just telling you. There's a lot more coming from the FTC.
These are early warnings, and if they get into those same bad habits, those numbers are going to increase very quickly. 200 million. I'm waiting for Uber to get that same type of fine. I mean, if you look at what they were fined for, Uber should be paying the equivalent or more. So I don't know why Uber didn't receive the little slap on the wrist, but maybe it's coming.
I was surprised last week when we were even talking about a Q3 earnings quarter from Uber, because as you just said, Torsten, I mean, the rides are down.
Yeah.
I mean, we know they're charging more. We know they pay less whenever they can. But the rides are down. I mean, I don't know how they're still, I feel like they have a lot of ground to make up here.
Michelle, did you have something to say? I'm sorry.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Welcome, Michelle.
I just wanted to jump in and say that just from an industry standpoint, that you hear that these payouts are being made. They're being made by the insurance companies that represent them. And the insurance companies usually pay to cut losses. They're told to pay, not litigate. So that's why they get paid out. They just don't want to litigate it and run into more expenses of fighting it. That's
right.
Yeah,
true.
These fines, these settlements aren't made by the company. The company insulates itself with insurance.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah. But the headlines will say, Lyft paid 2.1. Yeah, but you're 100% correct. They settle very early on in the game. I mean, before it gets crazy, before the numbers go, the fraction.
Exactly. So, and I mean, that's why they have insurance. Even Fox News with their $700 and whatever $1 million payout, insurance, they pay tons of money for that. And on the other side, they have people that settle it and pay different fines that we never hear about because I've been in those businesses.
But before I move to this New York thing, okay, go ahead.
No, just real quick. The one thing I don't understand is why the FTC, I know everything is going to be done gradually, but why they just didn't drop the hammer. I feel like 2.1 is just a drop in the bucket for them. They're like, yeah, here's 2 million. So
you got to realize it's for one specific thing.
I know, but still.
Yeah, I mean, but they're going after him for so many different things. But
I also want to add something here. a lot of the drivers don't know where to turn when it comes to filing complaints. So I think it's more it's our job, Steve, your job, my job, Sergio's job to educate the drivers who they can turn to, right? Because there's so many frustrations and so much upset and anger. When the FTC suddenly gets this flurry of complaints, and start looking at patterns of complaints, oh wow, this seems to be a very evident pattern. Then eventually when the numbers come in, they act. Sadly, very, very late. But I think we need to do a far better job on holding them accountable, and saying, whether it's wherever we can file these type of complaints. I mean, protesting and striking, that's one thing. That's interacting with the media and getting public attention. But all these institutions should be there to protect these hard workers. So I hope to see more drivers, and I sort of have it on my roster once a month now. I have, I'm going to do videos on, okay, these are the outlets. If you have a complaint, a legitimate complaint, we'll take it here, and there. And they just need to run up some numbers and get their attention.
Yeah. I mean, we I don't know if you're familiar with Luis over at Delivery TV, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's in here, and if you're familiar, I'm sure you know what he's been going through. And he's been putting out some amazing content and really whistleblowing, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
But even Luis, like a perfect example, he was saying when he was on the show a few weeks ago that, he has emails, and he was actually a little disappointed in the Hispanic community that he represents on YouTube, because not enough of them were actually going through with these emails where he had made connections and inroads with legitimate publications and legitimate writers who wanted to hear from them. All they needed was just a quick little something. And he was very vocal about, being a little disappointed that, he's been going through all this and really, even putting himself in a little danger, and it's.
I tell you what that boils down to, the fear of retaliation, right? If you look at Business Insider, some of these, when they start interviewing drivers, most of these people want to stay anonymous. They're just afraid.
Yeah.
Right. And I see that big time with the wrongful deactivations. Wrongful deactivations, you're dealing with their legal department, you're filing an appeal, and you're telling them, hey, listen, if you're not going to listen to the driver's story and look at his side or her side of the story, we're going to file a claim for damages. And they're like, and then that's when they get scared. Do I really have to file a claim? I'm afraid that they'll cut me off forever. Yes, you have to. You have to assert your power. You have to stand up for yourself. Right now, what do you have? You're off the platform. You have nothing. So fight for something. Fight to get back on if you really need that job. I am surprised how, I see this very often, how hard drivers fight to get back on. I mean, they're relentless. They
I mean, sometimes to their own fault, which we've talked about many times, which is, even not just people coming across the border. This is everybody. But there's people who live here and have for their entire lives who get deactivated, can't figure out an angle and buy an account.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
buying a car and you're making payments, and 2 years later, you have 5 years of payments, and 2 years later you deactivated. Boy, it's tough. It saddens me how quickly they throw them under the bus and let them swim. And I think it's our job, other outlets' jobs, to educate the people what they can really do, what their rights are, what they can file.
Yeah.
Hopefully get them back on. But there's a lot of people just drifting around. They just actually they get into a depression. They just start digging a hole, and when it gets really financially bad, only then do they sort of take desperate action. But to put a driver in that position, I mean, think about it, right? Just to willy-nilly send them a message, you can no longer log on to your platform and use your account because you committed fraud. I mean, it just sends shockwaves through a driver. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. I get essays from drivers. I read these essays. I can sense, I can feel how stressed they are when they get deactivated. And the conversation that I had with David Risher, we're going to put this like fast track thing in place. Made a lot of promises to me, made a lot of promises to Sergio. Well, they haven't materialized. Wrongful deactivations. deactivations are through the roof because naughty driver, you're not complying at the airport, right? You're not accepting the trips or the trip radar requests we are sending you. Well, drivers are smart. They're gonna cherry pick. They're gonna figure out what pays, what doesn't pay. But Uber and Lyft hate that. They don't like low acceptance rate. They don't like high cancellations. And the ultimate punishment then is to, well, we'll partially deactivate you. We'll take your airport privileges away.
Yeah. You know what? I'll trade any day. I'll trade them that right. You can go ahead and do that stuff to me. Just be transparent.
Right.
Take the AR away, be transparent, and then you can do whatever you need to do to me.
But I'm going to say this. Are a lot of people educated on what drivers go through? And the reason why I'm saying that is I just remember Steve being in Colorado and talking to the center. Like, he literally had no idea what goes on with drivers, why they get wrongfully deactivated, until we talked to him and educated him on exactly what the process is and what we deal with as a driver. So when you talk to even like the FTC and they're actually, building their case, like, I feel like they're gaining knowledge too, because they might not have known unless like you're actually a driver yourself. And I feel like a lot of people,
You'd be pretty surprised even a year ago what they knew. I mean, they knew some intense stuff. They were, okay, perfect example, because I'm out of my year now. So perfect example. I've been releasing little pieces and tidbits, but a perfect example was obviously why David and I were in there. They were very familiar with Para. They even knew what was happening. They knew that we were scraping the API. We knew we were pulling that data. But instead of worrying about that, their questions surrounded, so why have you been sued twice for this? Why have you had to take this down twice? Well, because DoorDash doesn't want us providing all the details. Oh, and that was something they already knew. Yeah, that's why we're asking. We're actually just confirming something. And they were like, they understood why. So why are they not following? And I was so glad to hear this, state by state independent contractor law. And they used those words. And I was blown away because I was like, awesome, dude, because you're on the right track. And so they said, it was like, why are they not following these, which literally in every single state states that you have the right to, even though they're all worded a little different, every state has this. You have the right to use any tools at your disposal, any, free and clear of the hiring entity. So they don't even not have a say in what tools you use. They're not even supposed to be able to ask or no. You just get the job done. That's all.
Right.
Like your mapping app, them keeping tabs on them, them selling like our travel patterns.
Behavior, yeah.
I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, it's just nuts. And but they were in tune with all that stuff, and so they questioned, because they were familiar with what was going on at Para. They said, why doesn't this just exist in your own apps? And they were, many times it was specifically DoorDash. I don't know why, even though it was all of them, but why isn't this, just in the DoorDash app? And that's where David jumped in, and he goes, he literally said, well, they have more than 2 times as many coders hiding things and keeping things untransparent as the 1/3 that actually work on the app.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, that's really sad to even know that 2/3 of the programmers are literally constantly making it so you don't know what you need to know.
Messed up.
Very messed up. I was always hoping over the years that more whistleblowers would step forward, because, oh my gosh, I mean, the information that should be out there that's not out there is just it's mind blowing. And but the good thing is, they're catching on a little bit. They're reaching out, they're reaching out to experts in different fields and gathering information. I think we just need to do a far better job on educating these institutions and politicians, etc. What's really going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Because there's really, at the end of the day, there's millions of us. And if we find a very effective way of connecting with these individuals that make some big decisions up there, I think we could further our agenda. I mean, you not to go too far off topic, but you just saw what happened in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
At question 3, right? So that's sort of like a step in the right direction, but we need to mobilize and push.
Yeah, I mean, if we have time, I have, there's some pros and cons. I have a little pushback on it, but it's just because I don't really trust anybody in the system anymore.
Right.
But I did want to move into the New York thing too, because I know you're going to be super familiar with this. And this article has been circulating for a while, but this one came from Politico last night, which I found to be mind blowing because Politico doesn't often, I'm not on the side of Politico very often, but they can write a good article. And I was surprised they picked up on this. And I'm surprised the way they're reporting it. Because they're talking about the New York City Uber drivers are earning significantly more than many of the city's frontline workers. So they're talking about like how an EMT in New York City's starting salary is $44,000, but how a full-time Uber driver working 32 hours a week average at $35.86 per hour translates to $52,900 after operational costs. First of all, people need to understand that, and I'm sure Torsten even has more info on this than I do, 2/3 to 3/4 of the drivers in New York can't drive anymore.
Yeah.
You can't even get on the platform. So to say this is such a slap in their face because it's only representing 25% of the drivers that used to be able to work the platform.
The piece that you're referring to, I thought that was like a paid article. I didn't realize that brought that out. It just cannot be. If you look at those lockouts where the AI is interpreting every move and just sort of keeping them at the minimum, and if you hear the driver stories and how they're reacting to the lockouts, the protests that they've done, the good thing is they've been very vocal. The good thing is they've been taking it to the streets. And, you shutting down traffic in New York in a very, very busy area gets attention. And they haven't just done this once. They've done it multiple times. So, yeah, I think lawmakers are paying attention. The Uber and Lyft need these markets. I think it's probably the second largest market for them, New York.
Yeah.
And, then again, play according to our rules. If not, there will be some forms of punishment. And I felt like the 6% nonsense that they just recently announced, another 6% pay cut. It's just further punishment, and it has a ripple effect.
Exactly.
Right? It's not just, it's targeted at New York, but everyone please pay attention because this could be coming your way.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just waving their little stick there, trying to get drivers to comply nationally. I know we'll see. I hope that a lot of organizations and good attorneys start jumping in and realize that a lot of good cases to be fought out there, and we need to hold them more and more responsible for these little.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at this article and thinking that, I only give it the credit it deserves, but I'm looking at it thinking, man, this is in Politico. Some people are going to see this and see, that meanwhile, city employees who perform critical jobs, including EMTs and sanitation workers, have experienced stagnant wages. Starting salaries for both EMTs and sanitation workers in New York City remains below $44,000. So they're going to see this article and say, I'm just going to be an Uber driver then. But that can't work.
No, they're already so saturated. That's why,
I know. I mean, it's so misleading. It's crazy. And I feel like there's 100 people's hands in everybody's pocket here. There are 100 people taking money out of this pool of money that shouldn't even be involved.
100%.
And I think that's probably a good point to get into the segue of, I know you've been doing this for a while, and Kim, you were talking about, are we getting the word out enough? Remember that, I mean, Torsten's channel is all about getting the word out to the drivers. That's what it is. But so, I know that even Tony, the Driven Dad here, him and I talk about it in our market all the time. Jeff in Arizona, a lot of people I'm talking with, this isn't just a couple people anymore. Everybody's getting into the private client atmosphere, or at least wanting to understand it.
Yeah.
So you've been talking about this since I met you. What is your position now, and with what you have going?
Well, the way I look at a private driver, or let's say a fleet, if you want to blow it up and duplicate what you are doing and then start your own fleet. I've been fortunate enough to be in that game for a long, long time, and I had two good friends, mentors that went in that direction in LA. I think at 10 SUVs. And then I looked at the numbers, and I was pretty heavily involved in commercial and residential real estate, and I'm like, this has a far higher return on investment. This is a great business model, and the way I operate is always I got to actually do the job to understand the job. So I said I have to drive. I got to get behind an SUV to understand what you guys are talking about, and I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I'm running my other business, and now at night I'm in an SUV, and those are good times, by the way. Like almost like $3-4 a mile. A trip where I picked up some equipment in Santa Monica and drove it down to San Diego was close onto a $700 trip. Those were the real good days. And back then, operating on Uber, operating on Lyft, and then operating under an operator who has the right licensing was a fantastic trio. You were making great money. And what I did then is I looked at, okay, what am I learning as a private driver, right? How am I building my base? How am I building my clients? And a lot of it came from, I see myself as an independent contractor. So if I am fulfilling a trip and taking one of your clients, dear Uber, dear Lyft, it's up to me if I want to form future relationships with that individual, right? I'm not stealing on the spot and try to convert them into a cash trip, which many people promote. If that's how you make your money, I'm not faulting anyone. Look, today you got to survive, right? You got to do what you got to do. I did it more like methodical, and I always used to say to the Uber rider, look, if you cannot get an Uber or a Lyft, here's my business card, here's my picture, here's my car. I'm available 24/7. And I built it, and I built it, and I built it, and I just kept on adding vehicles. So at the peak, I was at 58 SUVs. I had 58 SUVs in my fleet. Downsized in the pandemic. After the pandemic was over, then started actively buying. I buy at these auctions. So people come to me about all the ins and outs, how to build a fleet, how to manage a fleet, how to pick the drivers, how to educate the drivers, how to do the marketing. And I have the course for that, which is doing great. But to see the number of signups on a course grow, to see people like Jeff, always said, Jeff, get your own SUV. Suddenly he has an expedition. And I was like, super cool, because another YouTuber in an SUV just creates more power to the people. We need to start converting those individuals who underpaid and putting them into their own power. So once they realize that, okay, commercial insurance is expensive, you're buying that type of vehicle is expensive, and yes, and registering and setting up your company and buying the licensing, etc., varies from state to state, city by city. But if you follow the formulas, Jeff took my course. If you just follow the formula, it's not rocket science. It's basic referral marketing, building out, and we can thank Uber and Lyft for providing that stream of riders that we can convert. Now, I don't ask any questions how drivers convert these individuals. If you're at a SoFi,
I mean,
or at an NBA game, and you hustling with your little laptop and say, hey, cash rides, however you do it, once you've tasted money, and once you've seen that, at the moment, 60 to 70% is going to them, I'm getting 30 to 40, and you're suddenly getting 100% of that trip, you start thinking, wow, I've been really shafted here for quite a while. I need to step into this arena. So I'm really happy that I'm actually happy that Jeff and other people are promoting it. I've been promoting it forever. really seeing a lot of traction here. I mean, signups through the roof, and I'm not just talking the United States, right? It's the way people get treated in Miami, New York, Salt Lake City, LA is the same way they're getting treated in London, Brighton, and Norwich, UK. So those guys are also stepping into their worth, and obviously Uber and Lyft hate that because we're just taking.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, I've done it a few different ways. I'm with you. I think for the rule of thumb anyway, again, do it your own way, but rule of thumb for me anyway is not just get them in a car and try and get them immediately. Like, hey, let's cancel this and let's just figure out a rate. I mean, because if you're looking for a private client, make sure you connect with them. That's going to be a big deal. You're not going to want a private client you don't like.
The best thing you've just said, make sure you connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
But in life, we do try to connect with like-minded people, right?
Yeah.
People that lift us up, not put us down.
Mm-hmm.
So a good example for a driver now, if you're taking a trip, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. When you connect with that driver, there is something there. There's an energy, there's a synergy, there's a conversation, there's a joke. They are well wishes. It's just, it's a good vibe with that rider or their family or a businessman in the car. And he or she are asking you great questions. You know, do you have a family? Do you do this full time? And you're having a healthy dialogue. Those are the people I want to form those relationships with, right?
Yeah.
Not the unknown factor who's sitting in the back on the laptop or on the phone, and then really get a chance to connect with them and find out who they are.
Yeah.
So the people that you want to recruit and have in the back of your car should be the hand-picked individuals that you meet on these trips. And then the other beautiful thing is, if you've attracted a good person, they usually know other good people, and that's what I call the referrals. So good people refer good people, and once in a while, like just to give you an idea, I'm sitting on about 380 clients. I maybe had to let about 10 people go over the last few years because we were just not aligned, or things changed, or you know, and the good thing as a true independent contractor, you don't have to tolerate any shit from anyone. You know, if you have a good relationship with someone and it works both ways, I want to drive you again and again and again. I want to get to know you. I want to maybe even become your friend, right? But if it goes a little bit off track, or people are trying to put you down, or tell you you're practicing the wrong religion or the wrong politics, usually just cut them free, right? You don't need that energy in your car. So what I love is drivers stepping into that space, at least exploring that space. Hey, I now have the chance to create these wonderful relationships with people and build out and build out repeat clients. You know, you want repeat clients that book you over and over and over again.
Yeah. And I wanted to add there that happens a lot, by the way, guys. If you're not doing rideshare, like, you can probably imagine that you connect with a lot of people. Like, if you're willing to take that next step,
But
like, there's a lot of potential clients.
But I love what you just said, because I feel like you can also apply it to not just rideshare. You can apply it to any app that's out there, because you are an independent contractor. So, you know, I have my own sets of restaurants that don't even go through Easy Cater anymore. They just call me directly because they like the service that I've provided them. So I have my own personal restaurants that I deal with personally. So I feel like you can make anything really into a business if you generate those connections and you generate those relationships in any app that you work.
100% right. And I'm sure that we go through the room, we have 6 people here, and everybody gets to share their personal story. I love the story how you create the relationships with the restaurants. Why? Because they value you, they know you, they get to build a relationship with you. They know that you are on time and they can depend on you, and they'd rather have that relationship with you directly, where they can save themselves 25-30% and cut out that middleman. So and these are the stories that I love. These are the stories that I love reading, that the people are actually stepping up and seeing their own worth and actually stepping into their own sort of like managerial skills and managing themselves, versus getting, you know, spoon-fed little trip radar requests, which is BS, right?
Yeah,
that's music to my ears. So I mean, maybe the other other three would like to share a similar story, like to the restaurant story, because we all have those stories. We do.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up next, because Michelle, actually, Torsten, if you don't know, Michelle runs the two largest Facebook groups for DoorDash. Over 200 and is it 250 now?
Right. Well, and news as of today, an administrator from another group contacted me. He's got about 20,000 members. He said he was bowing out if I would take over. So I now have three
Wow.
groups.
Yeah.
And
So 250,000 people. I mean, that's pretty huge.
Yes. And when you were just saying, to your point, how you doing? To your point.
Oh, I love that. I'm saluting that because that's powerful.
Well, it's powerful.
Powerful.
It's powerful to the point that you were saying earlier. I have mimicked what you said so many times about the wrongful deactivations. I have this habit of getting up about 2:33 a.m. Central Standard Time every morning, and I can put on both groups, and there is a litany of people that are beside themselves with deactivations. I got deactivated. I don't know why. And aside from that, they have their ratings, perfect ratings. 3,000 deliveries, 10,000 deliveries, 5.0 customer service rating, 80-90% completion, AR, 100% completion rate, but yet saying, I don't know why I was deactivated, and it was sudden, there was no warning, and what can I do? How can I appeal? And very few people ever come back and have a successful appeal. We do get them, and they do give us all their documentation,
Really
but it's rare. And they're looking immediately because they're angry. They want to go to litigation. They want to form a group. They want to find out who's the man behind the curtain at DoorDash that we can talk to. But there isn't anybody to talk to. Where can we go? Oh, yeah, you send it to the appeal. That's what you do. And they'll tell you in the appeal. Now there's a new appeal reply that says, we'll see you in 90 days. So either there is something
like a timeout.
Yeah. We'll talk to you in 90 days and let you know if you get back in. And sometimes, granted, there's been recent glitches where numerous people got deactivated wrongfully, but it was a glitch, and they're immediately back on the platform, but not. And I feel for, I mean, I've been doing this for over 4 years. I feel for every individual. I don't know them. Many, they just have no recourse. So where do they go?
Well, when you hear a food delivery or a rideshare driver talk about their wrongful deactivation, there's a few things you can ask, right? Have you received prior warnings? Have you been deactivated before?
Yeah.
Have you had any other violations? If so, be honest, speak up, because
right.
you don't want surprises as you get into this process, right? And sadly, there are some bad apples out there that are abusing things, the same way, or let's say they get a second chance because their ratings were so low. They're not paying attention to customer service. They take a course, they have to build their way up again. They get sort of like a second chance, but then they step straight down. So I try to extract the truth from a driver as far. Don't if I find out there are any surprises, if I find out that sexual harassment towards a lady, you as the driver, is not the first time, but it's happened a few times, I won't even answer your call. You're done. You're out, and you should be out, right?
Yeah.
So let's be honest, there are certain drivers that should not be on the platform, but the bulk of the deactivations is exactly why Rish's secretary reached out to me, and they set up a 15-minute call on deactivations, because I do see myself as a specialist in that arena. And then that 15-minute conversation became a 30-minute conversation. And he said, what can we do? And you brought it up. If you are sitting on a driver with a 5-star rating or a 4.98, multiple thousands of trips, and then suddenly they just get this curveball and then they're off, and they're like, but I'm a 5.0 oh, driver, I've done 10,000 trips. I'm like, I'm a veteran. I'm good. And I know they're good, right? And I said to Risha, you trying to tell me that guy who just slipped up maybe, 3 or 4% wrong, but all his life, all her life, they've been dedicating trip after trip to your company, making you an absolute fortune. They have a 5.0 driver. You don't tell me you're going to look at them and get them an immediate second chance and fast track them like that and get them back on the platform where they should be, taking care of your customers, because those are the drivers you want on the platform. So he's like, yeah, good point. So yeah, we're working on fast tracking that, and we're going to come out and so I had him agree to. I said, when is this going to happen? Well, we see this happening in the next 6 to 12 months. Well, the 6 and 12 months went by. It's the same where Sergio called them out, right? Listen, time has gone by, but you haven't delivered on this and this and this promise. Here's the problem. The machine of replacing a driver with another driver it's a huge machine, right?
Yeah.
Students finishing, needing a job, boom, they'll sign up for Uber and Lyft. So it's an endless recruiting machine where they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars. The referral bonuses are becoming less and less. I saw one today, 550 trips on Lyft. You'll get $350 for referring that driver, and then they get $175. But they want to extract 550 trips out of you in the first 30 days. Well, that was very, very different to 12, 13 years ago, where they were paying you $500 to $1,000 for a new driver.
Or more.
Do 20, 50, or maybe 75 trips maximum. They were just throwing them. So they grew lightning fast. So they can replace any driver with another driver. The question is the quality. I think the quality is going down a lot, and that like the pride in the job has like gone to an all-time low. You don't want to pay me the money. I'm sorry. I'm not going to give you my all. I'm not going to sacrifice the service, get the waters, the mints as I used to 5, 6, 7 years ago. I'm just going to do the bare minimum and get them from A to B. So the quality of service towards the rider, I think, has gone down, and purely because why should the driver go? Why should he or she go out of their way to really offer tip-top service? But the wrongful deactivations, I think what it boils down to is they cannot figure out this low acceptance rate, and drivers are stepping into their worth and seeing, okay, I just cannot make it work with these little trip radar requests, right? So I need some sort of calculation on a 5-hour shift or on a weekly shift that works for me. Well, it works a little bit for the driver. It's certainly not working for Uber and Lyft. And then it's like, okay, what can we implement to force them to drive more? And they get very, very creative in their little ideas and their little bait and switch tactics to keep the driver in the hamster wheel, to try and extract as much as possible out of them. Drivers have smartened up. Sadly, the punishment then goes back to and you're an independent contractor, by the way. You shouldn't be deactivated over low acceptance or high cancellations. You should be able to make the trip. If you're not providing me all the details, if you're not even providing me the destination, if you're not even providing me the amount of earnings on a reserve trip, I mean, we see it more and more. If you're not giving me all the details of the contract, why should I abide by this contract? And so they're making it as vague as possible, revealing as little as, because it's too embarrassing for them to share with the driver what he or she could earn on that trip or where they would like them to go, which is maybe a little bit too dangerous. It goes against my safety measures. So they're having a very, very big problem trying to sort of like outsmart the driver. Drivers are smart, but then you get, you get a big group of people, maybe on illegal accounts, that'll just take anything and everything, right? They'll just drive anything and everything, and that sadly then destroy the market for the good ones. But activations are rampant. They haven't solved that issue. Not at all.
No. In fact, I real quickly wanted to ask Cheyenne too, because in Canada, is this even possible? could you even, I know you don't do rideshare, but like food wise, think of it as maybe groceries. You've done Instacart, you know, like, could you pick up a private client? How would that work? Is it even done? I mean, if it's not done, could you do it? But is it even done? Would you consider it if somebody else asked you and you were using the service? Would you be offended?
I had a private client. There was a client that I did a DoorDash order with, and there was something complicated with his order. And then there was an item, anyways, whole mix up. And when I went to drop it off, I don't know, we just click, as Torsten said. When you click with the customer, it works out. And I told them, oh, I'll just go back to the store and get it for you. I didn't mind. I was almost done with my night. So we had our personal numbers. And then I got a call maybe 3 days later, and they're like, hey, are you working tonight? And I'm like, no, why? And they're like, oh, I just wanted to get XYZ from the store, but they don't have a vehicle. So I was like, you know what? Like, I'm home. Someone's home with me so they can watch the children. Sure, I'll go for you. So I did that. There was something else that they wanted picked up from somewhere. And I was like, you know how to e-transfer me now. And yeah,
so,
you know, I did.
But in Canada, can you keep doing that? I mean, is that a doable thing? Can you look into insurances? Can you, I mean, because I know you have your other things that you do too, like exercise and eating. And,
yes.
You know, can you make a business out of this? Or do you feel like it would be in too much conflict with these apps the way that Canada's set up?
At the end of the day, for me, the apps, I really don't care. As I said, I'm part-time. So it's not like I'm like, you know, I have to have these apps. I've said this on my channel before, you need to have multiple streams of income. If the apps go down, whatever, you figure out another way to make money. So if it's having a customer that I control, so, you know, my relationship with them, the fees that I might charge them, I'd rather have that than the app, because the app anyways isn't bringing me what I want. It's not bringing me what I deserve. So why would I put them on a pedestal and choose them over having a private customer? To me, it just makes more sense to have a private customer.
Yeah.
It's just not everyone's willing to put in that work, because as he said, I do have my other things. So I know what it takes to build a clientele. It's not easy. And not everyone's going to put the work to actually get that done. But once you do, it's so rewarding. Like, it, I don't know, but I'm a people
and like Torsten said,
well.
if you really put it in hard enough, very likely they're going to tell friends too.
Yes.
So they're going to be doing some promo for you internally very quickly too.
Of course. And that's the best, when you have someone that's singing your praises, not out of your mouth, but out of their mouth.
Right.
It's priceless.
And can I some of the easiest ways, you know, we have people watching and listening in, but some of the easiest ways to promote yourself, right? I tell the people, hey, I have 5 teenagers. That's a lot. They say, oh my God, that's a lot of work. Yes, it is a lot of work, and driving them around is a lot of work, but I'll gladly do that for your children. And if they want to go out, I had a teenager just before we went live. She said, oh, by the way, us girls, and these are 5 16-year-old girls. We want to go to the concert on November the 14th. Please, are you available? And, and I'm texting the teenager right back, and I say, yeah, tell your mom, I'll pick you girls up. I know this crowd. I've taken them on many, many little party trips, right? It's like a phase in their lives. They're now all going clubbing and partying, and I'm the driver. I've got to herd the sheep and make sure they don't do any crazy shenanigans. I just sort of treat them like my children, right? And that's the relationship I have with the people that pay me. I text them. I say, hey, we're dropping off Johnny, we're dropping off Jill, we're stopping at In-N-Out. And I'm showing them that I'm treating them, their kids, like my kids, and that is my top priority. And obviously the same goes for adults, right? It's more difficult, obviously, driving children, because you, at the end of the evening, you have to round them up and you have to get them home. Otherwise, the parents are upset. But like, there are services out there like Hop, Skip, and Drive that'll take high-rated drivers, and you'll go through a pretty vigorous interview and
an actual background check.
Not like Uber Teen.
Well, like any of them.
That's an easy way to promote yourself. The other easy way to promote yourself is here. If I'm in Calabasas and to LAX, Uber is charging a horrendous $240 for what is a 50 to 60-minute trip to the airport in an SUV. Let's take a Suburban. I know it's $240, so I can say to the individual, I said, by the way, just out of curiosity, how much are you paying for that trip? And I can look it up, right? I can look it up on the other phone because I put in the destination, I put in the start address, and I can see it's the same, pretty much the same timing. It's 220 to 240. So I said, does 220 to 240 sound accurate? And they say, yeah, wow, that's pretty much what I'm paying. I said, well, if I told you that in the future I'll gladly do that trip for $200 and you save yourself $40, how do you feel about that? And any person likes to save money, and any person knows that Uber and Lyft are overcharging the rider. So if they're getting a better deal from you one-on-one, and they can actually experience your driving style, how safe you are, how punctual you are, those are the qualities at the end of the day that these individuals want to hit the repeat button on. I want reliability. I want punctuality. I want someone that's friendly. I want someone that takes care of my kids. So if you just build out all the positives, and you know that in the segment in my 300-minute course, I spent probably about 40 minutes talking about advertising, marketing, referrals, and networking. And referrals are a beautiful thing because a good person usually is a good person.
Kim, did you have something? Because I'm going to move into one last topic before we
real quick, because I just don't want to lose my thought. And it's going back to, we were talking about deactivations and, you know, violations and stuff like that. But I was just going to say, like, a lot of these companies, not just rideshare, all these companies, I feel as though they value quantity over quality, and that's where we get kind of as drivers lost in a lot of the stuff. But I feel like they have completely taken the humanity out of what we do. Like all of these deactivations and even warnings, contract violations, whatever you want to put in there, are just automated through AI, right? You do something wrong, you get a warning. You do something wrong, you get deactivated. And there's no humanity, or there's no human connection that you can actually go to. And I think that's where a lot of these companies do drivers injustice in getting what they rightfully deserve, because there are a lot of good drivers out there, Torsten, to your point, that just get deactivated for no reason, and they have no recourse to fight it or even do something about it.
But to fight it, let's just say to fight it, I want to give a couple of good pointers. So if you find yourself in this position in the future, I pray you don't. I hope you never get deactivated, right? But few little things to look out for. Most of those WhatsApp and Instagram little scams where the people will hack into your account and get you back in, they are what they are. They are scams, right? And sadly, I mean, I've even done a segment where I phoned up several of those bogus numbers, and they all try to get you for $150 to $250. People sadly hand over their credit card information too easily, too quickly, get scammed, and then right there and then they fried. They've given up their last bit of money, and they're done, and they're disheartened, and their spirit is broken. Contacting the review team, you know, where you can do your own appeal. You sort of, well, you know, you get hung out there for a week, 2 weeks, 3 months, and they're just grinding you down, not coming back with answers, and not giving you answers, saying, well, it's called fraud. You know, you committed fraud. Well, what type of fraud did I commit? Tell me. Nothing. Just keep you hanging. Also a very long, frustrating, upsetting process. So if you want to do like DIY, do it yourself. Okay. Do me a favor, whether it's DoorDash, the one lady has a lot of DoorDash followers. What you can tell the people is that they have a legal department, right? If you go onto LinkedIn and you put in, you know, attorneys or the people that actually work in the legal department for DoorDash or for Lyft, you'll get an address, you'll get names. And what I always tell the people, you want to do it yourself, draft a letter, right? Draft a letter and say, I tried your specialized team. I tried your review team, completely helpless. So here's what's going to happen. And this is where you have to really dictate the terms. I'm giving you 2 weeks, right? And you can write to multiple people, or you can keep it very generic. You just write straight to the legal department, and don't write a love story. Keep it like to a page. Really get into like where you believe your statement, make it bold, like this is what I did, and I did not breach any laws, I did not commit fraud, I'm a great driver, and you have wrongfully deactivated me. And if you do not act by such and such date, I will march this either to arbitration or to small claims. Now, arbitration is where they would like to push us into, because it takes forever and they control that process unless you've opted out of every single terms of service from day one.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You have zero chance in arbitration, zero, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so you have zero chance taking it to a higher court for $25,000 or higher. But what you can do is you can say, I'm giving you by such and such a date, set a 2-week marker. You know what, today is the 7th, I'm giving you till 11/21/2024 to fix this or to listen to me. If not, I am filing a small claims against you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as small claims, we have all these different states. Texas has $20,000 maximum. California has $12,000. Kentucky only has $5,000. But if you add up the numbers and quickly calculate how much you have lost over 2-4 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, it sometimes runs beyond $10,000, right? So if you're going in with a maximum, and this is the exercise, this is where you can save yourself a lot of money. Don't have to go out and hire an attorney. You don't have to go and put down a $2,500 or a $5,000 retainer. You do the homework yourself. So the first thing is you've written them a letter to the right department, to the legal department. You've given them 2 weeks. If you do not fix this issue, I am taking you to small claims. Now, small claims, believe it or not, there are a lot of sympathetic judges, and Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Uber Eats, they do not want to hire their paralegals and have to deal with this because it costs them a lot of money, right? It costs them a lot of money dealing with you being like an aggravating little fly, threatening with small claims. They don't want to go down that road. And if they are not sincere, and if they do not want to engage, you know, in the back and forth and get you back on the platform, you file the papers. You're looking at $45 to $70 maximum filing fees. In California, for example, it's called an SC 100, Small Claims 100. That's the form. You fill it out, you put in your dollar amount, and you keep it short and simple, and then you pay either a third party to serve the papers, or you serve them yourself through a friend, maybe at a hub. I used to serve papers for people at a hub. Just go straight into the hub. You've been served, boom, put the papers down. And the same steps, by the way, applies. Canada, they have the same system in place, like a small claim system. They have the same system in Europe. They have the European system has like a small claim system, and it's a couple of pages, it's paperwork. But once they get those papers, they start talking because they have a date on the calendar. And in California, for example, they'll set the dates at 3 to 4 weeks out. And that 3 to 4 weeks then becomes the negotiating period. So, hey, the longer you are keeping me off the platform, the more my damages are running up, and the more likely for me to, you know, just settle with you, because what they do offer then, hey, we have decided to give you the account back, but we want you to drop the charges against us. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a victory, right? You got the account back. There are a lot of stubborn drivers that want to push further and say, oh, I want my account back, and you have to pay me $6,000. And they're stubborn and they dig in, they dig their heels in, and the company comes back, oh, you know, we'll give you your account back and maybe 500 or 1,000. Take it. It's a victory. You've got your job back. They can't deactivate you again because it would be retaliation. So for the do-it-yourself, that's how you do it. My 2 companies that I have, I work with 6 paralegals. And a lot of it's AI driven. So we'll get a statement. It'll be worked into the forms. It'll predetermine. Okay, is it going to DoorDash legal department? Is it going to Lyft's legal department? Is it going to Uber's? So we get a lot of the paperwork done by AI. But at the end of the day, you still need someone that's holding their hand and says, okay, the 21 days or the 14 days are over. Now you need to go out and file these papers, right? And you actually have to send them the forms, the small claims forms, and say, this is how you fill it out. This look up your local court and go and pay your fees. And then you have to have what they call a POS, which is proof of service.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a date. You have a date on the calendar, and that's when it gets real for the company. That's when the company knows this driver means business. So it all depends on you.
Or at least where they purge the books every month and go, okay, what do we got on the docket? We have to go up against 700 drivers. Okay, figure it out with all of them. Like,
yeah, exactly. And
you know,
I mean, I'm literally their top driver recruiter to the probably the number. I filed 7,000 wrongful deactivations. We just passed the 7,000 mark. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But
this is, I do want to end on this, and especially because you were talking about, when you were talking about private clients, you were talking about taking teenage clients, which the way you do it, totally for it. But I think that I even put it in the title of this. We ended it quick because Kim said, no, okay, just no. Nobody should do this. But I didn't want to talk about Uber Teen because it's so much different than what you were talking about. And I first wanted to like clarify with you, Torsten, because you and I feel exactly the same about this. But then I want everybody on the panel to like give a pitch that you would give as a parent to Uber or Lyft on why they need to get rid of this, or even just a question that you would ask that should stump them. Like, because this is like when Torsten's saying he has all of his licensing and he's checked all of his insurance, he knows what he's doing. He has a fleet of cars. He's met their parents. He's probably drove around the parents many times before the kids. Now we can take the kids to a concert. They feel very secure. I would never let my kid go in a Uber Teen, but I would let them go with Torsten because I know Torsten. But I just didn't want that tying in with Uber Teen, since that was in the title of this, because in my book, I think Uber Teen is actually one of the hardest core things that is completely illegal that they do.
Well, anybody want to jump in first, or
Go for it, my friend.
go for it? Open the gates. Let's go. So, dear parents, absolute no. Seriously, you don't have the time to drive your own kids. You're going to stuff them in a Waymo. You're going to put them in an Uber or Lyft. Come on. You're putting your 13 or your, I'm talking to you parents out there right now. So you're putting your 13-year-old in some stranger's car, right? And 99% of those drivers are great. It'll just take one wrong driver and you'll regret ordering that Uber or Lyft. But it works both ways. Teenagers are not adults, right? They're not adults. They have a lot to learn in this world, right? I have 5, believe me, every day. It's school time. It's educate. You educate, trying to be the best parent. And I think a good parent will find the ways of contacting another mom or dad. Hey, can we pool? Can we create a pooling system to school? I'll do it the one day, you do it the other day. I think that's like engaged parents are hands-on parents and care about their children, especially when it comes to transport, because transport, you're putting a lot of trust into that person who's behind the wheel. Now, for drivers out there, this is sort of like a few things I like. The golden nose: don't take Trip Radar, don't take shared trips, don't take Uber Teen. If an Uber Teen, a 13 or a 14-year-old, wants to pull a fast one on you and make an allegation against,
or even before you go farther, an 11 or 12-year-old who says they're 13 because they don't have ID.
Right. And your life is over, my friend, at that point, right? Because then you'll have the authorities involved and it could all be a juiced up phony story. So these teenagers are not adults. They do silly things. You know, they have a lot of learning to do before they're 18, 19-year-old. And interestingly enough, for all those years, Uber and Lyft stayed away from them, right? But my dear friend, Dara Koshashawi, I hope you're listening in to Steve's rodeo show. He's desperate for every nickel and 25 cents and every dollar he can make. So to jump in the teen arena, am I surprised? No, he'll chase every dollar. Dara Koshashawi, shut it down. You know, do parents a favor, do teenagers a favor. There are services out there. And you know, there is pooling out there. There are other adults that'll gladly take your children. You got to just figure out how to transport your children, and putting a kid into a Waymo. I've seen like San Francisco parents.
Yeah, I've seen this too. It's,
I mean, next level craziness, right? Next level.
but I mean,
crazy.
from 2009 to 2023, they didn't only have Uber, they did not have Uber Teen. They allowed you to cancel because it was a teenager, and even though it wasn't just a minute amount of money, they paid you to do it. They didn't even want you taking them. No unaccompanied minors.
All the new fancy, we have Teen Reserve. You can reserve a car up to 90 days with Uber Teen, and right up to a minimum of 30 minutes. And then we have all these new safety guards built in. You could track your teen. It's not going to help you to track your teen if there's someone with wrong intentions in your car, and vice versa. I'm sorry. So no matter how fancy schwancy you think that your safety features are in the app, teenagers, I'm sorry, they should not be in this vehicle. 18, 19 onwards, yeah, I get it, right?
Yeah.
And especially if people are partying and you have a responsible kid who's 18, 19, say is going to pool with 3 or 4 other kids, and they're going to grab an Uber. But I'm sorry, Steve, an 11, 12, 13-year-old in a car is just, for me, a huge NO. No.
As a mom, it just makes me cringe. But what makes me even cringe even more are like the commercials they have like on TikTok.
Exactly.
But those TikTok commercials are so bad. Like they're like
So
two
bad.
moms like talking to each other like, oh my God, did you hear? This is like the best thing ever. I don't have to take my kids anywhere anymore. I'm just like, oh my God.
So that's like the question, Kim, to you is like, if a mom said to you, even though you don't do rideshare, it doesn't matter. And she said,
no,
I'm going to let my kid do Uber Teen. And you said no. And her argument was, hey, Kim, I saw all these commercials. It's totally fine.
no, it's not. No, it's not. Like, I hate to say, I would rather take your kid for you at that point so they don't have to take an Uber. Like, no.
Yeah.
And Uber and Lyft, I mean, as evil as they're paying these TikTok influencers to run these type of ads. I mean, this is how corrupt the system is. Like, you know, they'll get something, or they'll get some trip credits. Oh, but run some little TikTok ads for us, right? I can make a TikTok ad glorifying Uber Teen, but I'm not desperate for that little thing that you're offering me there over there, Uber or Lyft. This here is not thought out. It's dangerous. And dear parents, figure something out. Come on, man. Be parents. Step up. Be parents. Take care of your children. Don't rely on some driver.
I just feel like with how crazy this world is, and we live in a very crazy world, that people are just way too trusting in these companies to provide safety for their own kids. Like, you're the parent. Be in charge of your own kid's safety. Don't leave it in the hands of a company that doesn't have the same care for your kid.
But I think part of it's like you said, those commercials are very misleading. I don't know.
That's the thing.
Tom, what's your weigh in on this? You still drive rideshare, so what do you think?
I guess my message here is one that I can't say without getting really upset, because I've been on the wrong side of this, in that my parents trusted the wrong people. So don't do this.
Okay. Cheyenne, I mean, you have a kid, you know, I mean, what would you, I guess now we have to twist it up. So, you know, like, what would your words be to Uber if they had an open Q&A about Uber Teen and why? And why?
As I mentioned, I went in a mommy group, 2 mommy groups actually, where they were talking about this, because Uber's smart about it, right? At the beginning of the school year, that's when they ramped up all their ads for this. So you saw, as Kim said, all those TikTok parents that we look at those videos for all the funny things or all the, you know, information that they're sharing. And then boom, they came out with this Uber Teen. So a lot of moms were talking about it in the group, and I was like, please do not. And then I gave my reasons. I was like, you don't know who's driving that vehicle. Yes, you can track, because they're like, oh, I can track my child. Okay, what are you going to do if they throw the phone out the window? What are you going to do in the moment? Like, you can track your child, but you don't know what's happening in the moment. You can just see, yes, they're on route, but who are they on route with? What's going on in the vehicle while they're on route? It doesn't mean that they have to change routes for something bad to be happening. Anything could be happening in the vehicle. And
their phone dies. They accidentally hit airplane mode.
Like,
the guy throws it out the window.
Some people are just too trusting. And, you know, I'm not even going to go into the whole, like, don't even teach your children like stranger danger, because most times it's not strangers. I'm not even going to go there. But this is stranger danger. Like, I always see this meme where they're like, oh, when we were younger, our parents told us, don't, you know, speak to strangers or don't get in a vehicle with strangers. And then boom, now you have Uber Teen. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. How are you trusting these random people with your children?
Yeah.
But I get it. I get it. Uber was very smart with the marketing. They touched on the pain points that parents have because yes, parents are busy. This generation of parents, they're busy, but the children have a lot of activities. I understand that completely. But at some point in time, you still have to be a parent. You still have to be a mom. You still have to be a dad. And you still have to make that decision. Okay, well, if my child has soccer, I'm leaving work early. If I can't leave work early, I'm sorry. If I can't figure out a ride with, you know, the neighbor that I know or whatever, someone that I really trust, maybe you're just not going that day. Like, it's just too easy to call upon Uber.
I feel like it's an excuse. Like, I can honestly say I am busy every minute of every single day from the time I get up to the time that I go to sleep. Like, and I'm up until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, I am busy, but there's no way in any creation I would ever put my daughter in Uber. Like, to me, that's just an excuse. No.
No.
So, Michelle, how would you close the casket on this one then? You'll be the last word on this.
Hold on, Torsten wants to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
So, owning your own car is a wonderful thing, right? And I think that parents just stuffing their kids into an Uber or Lyft, it's sort of taking away from that. You teach a lot to a child when they actually have to pay for their own insurance, save up for a car. Even if you start off with a little VW bug, you're starting. It's the most important, valuable lessons. Then, as a parent, teaching your child how to drive. But I want to read you. I want to read you one little paragraph when Uber said, "Oh, we revamped Uber Teen." I just want to show you how evil and how creative they actually got. Previously, teen accounts did not support parents booking trips using their own phones. But the new Guardian booking feature now allows this. Parents using Guardian booking will have access to the same security features as a teen account will use. Parents with an Uber One membership can also now share the benefits with their teens, such as free delivery and cashback trips. Any cashback funds go to the teen's account for future use. My friends, let me repeat this. Any cashback funds go to the teen account for future use.
I mean, they knew for 14 years this was absolutely wrong. They paid drivers to cancel these rides. A year ago plus, they said, you know what? Never mind. Let's allow all teenagers in the cars. And the drivers are not insured correctly. So, Michelle, how would you put the final words on this?
Yes. Uber, you're an unserious company. You're unserious about our precious cargo. The moms and dads of America deserve better. They do not deserve to have their children put at risk. This is risky. We know the drivers. We know who's out there. You don't ever meet these drivers in person. You don't vet them. You do ID checks. It's not a serious thing. You're not being trustworthy. This is not something that you should be taking lightly. And all you need is one incident to happen. And you've been warned. This is a bad idea. Stop it now.
Yeah. 100%. And I don't think that I see any signs of them stopping it. So, I mean, like, they're content with this bad move until something major happens. But Torsten, did you have any final words before I wrap it up here?
I just think that David Risher, Daryl Khosrowshahi, Tony Zhu, have been listening to the album ABBA too much, which is money, money, money. Like they will. I don't know how evil you can get. Look, they don't have to put their kids into rideshare vehicles. They have their own private drivers, their own security. So they can't really come down to our street level and understand us. I just think that a lot of these crazy ideas that are brewed up at the headquarters with a bunch of engineers and programmers are not thought through in the practical world and have real life consequences, right? So I think the more you actually do market research with parents, with people's on the street, the more you actually come down to a driver's level and really engage with drivers and find out what's happening on the street, only then will you truly understand the business and then be able to make the real decisions. Everything else is just dreaming up little crazy. I mean, every single day there's a new little surprise when you switch on the app, right?
Yeah.
And this feature and that feature, and then we listened to the Uber crew members and we brought out these other 48 features. I mean, it's like a hodgepodge of little daily ideas, but going back to core business, core principles. Dara, give me a call. David, give me a call. Tony, give me a call. I'm a parent. I'll gladly teach you how it works in the real world, or we will, as a panel of 7, we'll teach you how it works.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, folks, that's a wrap for the week. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, or on the replay, or on the audio podcast. I really want to thank Torsten for his time. And you guys, obviously, I barely even need to promote this, but if you haven't checked out his channel, it's called Rideshare Professor. I'm sure you've heard of it. Even if you don't do rideshare, you've seen it. Come on, check out his channel.
Maybe
but I'm sure you guys all know
those DoorDash channels. And then, when I do an intro on this one, I can introduce maybe just like a few words on every person. So when I make a video, hey, I had fun with, 6 new friends. I mean, I've known Steve for a long time, and then I can do a little bit of an intro and we can push that video. I think the content or the questions that you put together, Steve, were good or real, and I think I think we addressed them pretty well as a group, because if we can just connect with adults out there, with parents, I think we've done a great job.
Yeah. Everybody, thank you for joining us. My voice barely held up, but I knew that I'd make it. I had to make it. So. Until next week, guys, everybody be safe, earn smart, and Kim.
Kindness is always free.
That's right. Good night, guys.
She was just a baby.